My son asked to borrow $50,000 for his wedding. I gave him all my savings, but on the wedding day, security said, "You're not on the guest list. Leave." I silently turned around and left. The next morning, I made, "Good day, dear listeners. It's Clara again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled." I had spent 37 years working as a high school librarian in Portland, Oregon. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. After my husband Robert died 5 years ago, I'd learned to find peace in small things. Sunday morning crosswords, volunteering at the community center, video calls with my son Jason every other week. Jason was my only child, my pride. He'd moved to Seattle for his tech job 3 years ago, and though I missed him terribly, I was proud of his success. He'd always been ambitious, driven, the kind of son who remembered Mother's Day and called on my birthday. That's why I didn't hesitate when he called me last March. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something important." His voice carried that nervous energy I remembered from his childhood when he'd ask for something big. "Brittany and I are getting married." I was thrilled. I'd met Brittany twice. A polished, beautiful woman who worked in marketing. She seemed perfect. Maybe too perfect? But what mother doesn't have reservations about the woman taking her son? "That's wonderful, sweetheart. When's the wedding?" There was a pause. "June 15th. And Mom, I need to ask you something. It's difficult." My heart clenched. "Whatever you need, Jason. The wedding. Brittany's always dreamed of this perfect day. Her parents can't contribute much, and with my student loans. Mom, could you help us? We need about $50,000. $50,000. My entire savings account. The money I'd carefully tucked away from every paycheck. The inheritance from Robert's life insurance, my safety net. That's everything I have, Jason." "I know, Mom. I know. But this is a once-in-a-lifetime event. I'll pay you back, I promise. Within 2 years. I'm getting a promotion soon, and Brittany's company is doing well. Please, Mom. I can't imagine getting married without making Brittany happy." What kind of mother says no to her only son's happiness? I thought about Robert, about how he'd want me to support our boy, about how Jason had always been responsible, had always kept his promises. "Of course, sweetheart. Of course I'll help." The next day I walked into my bank and withdrew $50,000. The teller's concerned expression should have been a warning. "Mrs. Patterson, this is your entire savings. Are you sure?" I smiled, perhaps too brightly. "It's for my son's wedding." I wired the money that afternoon. Jason's text came through immediately. "Thanks, Mom. You're the best. I'll send you the wedding details soon." But the details came late. Very late. The invitation arrived just 2 weeks before the wedding. A thick, cream-colored card with gold embossing that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. The venue was some exclusive estate in the San Juan Islands, accessible only by private ferry. I called Jason to ask about travel arrangements. The call went to voicemail. I texted. No response. I tried again the next day and the day after that. Finally, 4 days before the wedding, he sent a brief text. "Super busy with wedding prep. See you Saturday." Should I have seen it then? The signs were all there, weren't they? But hope is a powerful anesthetic. I bought a new dress, the nicest one I'd owned in years. A soft blue silk that the shop assistant said brought out my eyes. I packed carefully, included the pearl necklace Robert had given me on our 25th anniversary. I wanted Jason to be proud of me. I wanted to belong in whatever world he and Brittany were creating. The ferry ride to the island was beautiful. June in the Pacific Northwest is magical. Everything green and alive, the water sparkling under clear skies. Other wedding guests were on the ferry too, young couples in designer clothes, laughing and taking selfies. I tried to introduce myself. I'm the groom's mother." They smiled politely and turned away. The estate was breathtaking. White tents, thousands of flowers, a string quartet playing on the lawn. I walked toward the entrance, my heart full of complicated emotions. Joy for Jason, sadness that Robert couldn't see this, and a strange nervousness I couldn't quite name. A security guard in a black suit stepped in front of me. "Name, please?" "Margaret Patterson. I'm Jason's mother, the groom's—" He checked his tablet, scrolling slowly. Too slowly. "I don't see your name on the guest list." The world tilted slightly. There must be a mistake. "I'm his mother. I gave him—" I stopped myself from saying I'd paid for this entire spectacle. "Ma'am, if you're not on the list, I can't let you in. Please, just call Jason. Call the groom. He'll—" "Ma'am, I need you to step aside. You're blocking the entrance." Other guests were arriving, staring, whispering. I saw pity in some eyes, suspicion in others. Who was this old woman making a scene? I could have fought. I could have screamed. I could have demanded to see my son. Instead, I turned around and walked away. The ferry back to the mainland was full of tourists enjoying the sunset. I sat alone at the stern, still wearing my blue silk dress, still carrying my small clutch with the pearl necklace inside. An elderly couple asked if I was all right. I told them I was fine, just fine. I wasn't fine. I drove the 2 hours back to Portland in a fog. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white. I kept replaying it. The security guard's indifferent face, the pitying stares, the fact that my own son had erased me from his wedding day. The day I'd paid for, when I finally walked into my small house, the one Robert and I had bought 32 years ago, the silence was crushing. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd fed Jason breakfast before school, where I'd helped him with homework, where I'd signed the papers to wire him my entire life savings. My phone sat in front of me. No calls, no texts, no apology, nothing. I opened my banking app. Balance, $2,247.32. That was it. That was what remained of 37 years of careful saving. I'd planned to use that money to fix the roof that leaked in heavy rain, to maybe take a trip to visit my sister in Arizona, to cover medical expenses when I got older. Now it was gone, traded for humiliation at the gates of a wedding I'd funded. How had I raised someone capable of this? The question tormented me through the sleepless night. I thought about every choice I'd made as a mother. Had I spoiled him? Robert always said I was too soft, too giving. But wasn't that what mothers were supposed to be? Where was the line between love and foolishness? Sunday morning came. Still no word from Jason. I imagined him dancing at his reception, eating the expensive catered food, drinking the premium wine, surrounded by his new wife's family and friends. Did he think of me at all? Did Brittany even know I existed? By Sunday evening, anger began seeping through the grief. Not the hot, explosive kind, something colder, more calculating. I'd spent 50 years being nice, being accommodating, being the peacekeeper. Where had it gotten me? I made coffee and opened my laptop. I needed to understand what had actually happened. I started going through every text message, every email from the past 3 months. That's when I noticed something. Jason had introduced me to Brittany 18 months ago, but they'd only gotten engaged in March. 6 weeks before, asking for the wedding money. The wedding was planned for June, just 3 months later. Who plans a $50,000 wedding in 3 months unless they already had the money promised? I clicked through to Jason's social media. I rarely used Facebook, but I knew he posted sometimes. His profile was semi-public. What I saw made my stomach turn. Photos from the engagement party I hadn't been invited to. Posts about wedding planning from January. 2 months before he'd even told me about the engagement. Comments from Brittany's mother about finally getting the wedding venue we wanted dated back to February. They'd planned this whole thing before asking me for money. The money wasn't to make the wedding possible. It was to upgrade it, to make it more lavish. And I hadn't been included from the very beginning. I scrolled further back. There, a photo from Thanksgiving. Jason and Brittany at what looked like her family's house, a massive modern home with floor-to-ceiling windows. The caption, "Grateful for my amazing future in-laws." Jason had told me he was working Thanksgiving because of a project deadline. He'd chosen them over me, even then. The evidence kept mounting. Brittany's Instagram was public, a carefully curated feed of luxury and aspiration. Designer bags, exclusive restaurants, weekend trips to Napa Valley. Her bio included, "Living my best life, future Mrs. Patterson." Future Mrs. Patterson. She'd taken my name, but hadn't wanted me at the wedding. I realized something then, sitting in the glow of my laptop screen. This wasn't just thoughtlessness. This was deliberate. Calculated. They'd used me for money and discarded me. They probably thought I'd be too meek, too hurt, too embarrassed to do anything about it. They were wrong. I'd been a librarian for 37 years. I knew how to research. I knew how to gather information. I knew how to be patient and thorough. And I knew that knowledge was power. I opened a fresh document and titled it, Operation Accountability. First, I needed to know my legal standing. I'd given Jason money, but I had the wire transfer records. I had the text messages where he promised to pay me back. That made it a loan, not a gift. In Oregon, verbal agreements backed by written evidence could be legally binding. I spent the entire night reading about contract law, small claims court, promissory notes. By dawn, I had a plan. It wasn't about revenge. I told myself that anyway. It was about justice, about teaching my son that actions have consequences, about proving to myself that I wasn't just a foolish old woman to be discarded. Monday morning, I dressed in my best professional clothes and drove to the law offices of Chen and Associates. I'd found them online. They specialized in family law and contract disputes. The consultation was free. The lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Chen, listened to my story without interruption. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "Mrs. Patterson, you have a case, a strong one. But I have to ask, are you sure you want to do this? Suing your son will destroy your relationship permanently." I met her eyes. "Ms. Chen, my son already destroyed our relationship when he took my life savings and banned me from the wedding I paid for." She nodded slowly. "Then let's discuss your options." Patricia Chen laid out my options with clinical precision. Small claims court in Oregon capped at $10,000. Useless for my situation. I'd need to file a civil lawsuit in circuit court for the full amount plus interest. The process would be public record. It would take months, possibly over a year. It would cost money I didn't have in legal fees. However, Patricia said, sliding a document across her desk, I occasionally take cases pro bono when they involve clear-cut injustice. This qualifies. I'll represent you for a reduced fee and we can arrange a payment plan. But Mrs. Patterson, I need you to understand. This will get ugly. Your son will fight back. Families always do. He stopped being my family when he left me standing outside that wedding, I said quietly. We spent the next 3 hours building the case. I provided the wire transfer records showing the $50,000 payment. I showed her Jason's text messages promising repayment within 2 years. Patricia explained that constituted a verbal contract with written evidence. I gave her screenshots of the wedding planning that started before he'd even asked me for money, proving premeditation. "This is good," Patricia said. "This is very good. They used you as a bank. Now we make them pay, with interest." The demand letter went out on Wednesday, sent via certified mail to Jason's Seattle address. It was formal, cold, legal. It outlined the loan amount, the promise of repayment, and demanded the full $50,000 plus 6% annual interest be repaid within 30 days, or we'd file a civil lawsuit. I signed it with my full legal name, Margaret Rose Patterson, the woman who'd given birth to Jason, the woman he'd erased. The letter would arrive Friday. I waited. Friday evening, my phone exploded. 7 missed calls from Jason within 10 minutes. Then the text started. "Mom, what the hell? Did you actually send a lawyer after me? This is insane! Call me right now!" I didn't call. I was learning that silence was its own form of power. Saturday morning brought a different approach. Jason's voice on my voicemail, carefully controlled. "Mom, I think there's been a misunderstanding. That money was a gift. You never said it was a loan. Please call me so we can discuss this like adults. Don't let some lawyer turn us against each other." I saved the voicemail, forwarded it to Patricia. Her response came quickly. "Perfect. He's already contradicting himself. Keep every communication." Sunday afternoon, Brittany called from Jason's phone. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Margaret." Her voice dripped with false sweetness. "I think we need to talk woman to woman. Jason is so upset. You're tearing this family apart over a misunderstanding." "I wasn't aware I was part of the family," I said calmly. "I wasn't on the guest list, remember?" A pause. When she spoke again, the sweetness was gone. "That was a venue capacity issue. The estate had strict limits. We had to make difficult choices. You found room for 200 people, but not the groom's mother. Look, Margaret, Mrs. Patterson." Another pause. I could hear her breathing, recalibrating. "Mrs. Patterson, you gave us that money as a wedding gift. You can't just demand it back because your feelings got hurt. I have text messages where Jason explicitly promised to repay me within 2 years. That makes it a loan, not a gift. My lawyer seems quite confident about our case." "This is ridiculous. You're going to sue your own son because you're bitter and lonely? Do you know how pathetic that makes you look?" There it was, the mask slipping. This was who she really was. "I'm suing my son because he committed fraud. He solicited a loan under false pretenses and failed to uphold his end of our agreement. This has nothing to do with emotions and everything to do with ethics and law." "You're a spiteful old woman," Brittany hissed. "You're going to regret this." She hung up. I immediately called my voicemail service and saved the recording of the conversation. I'd pressed record on my phone's app as soon as I'd seen Jason's number. Patricia had told me to document everything. Brittany's threat would look excellent in court. That evening, I checked Jason's social media again. The wedding photos were up. Professional shots of a stunning celebration. Brittany in a designer gown that probably cost $10,000 alone. Jason in a custom tuxedo, beaming. The venue decorated like a fairy tale. Not a single photo included me, of course. But there, in the background of one reception shot, I spotted something interesting. A banner. "Thank you to our generous families for making this day possible." Our generous families. Plural. They'd thanked phantom versions of me while I stood outside. I took screenshots, added them to the evidence folder. Monday morning brought an email from Jason's personal account. It was long, rambling, emotional. He called me ungrateful for throwing his gesture of inclusion back in his face. He said I was weaponizing money to control him. He claimed the wedding exclusion was Brittany's family's decision, and he'd fought for me but lost. Every line was a lie, and I could prove it. I forwarded it to Patricia with a note. "He's making this easier." Her response, "They always do. People who feel entitled to other people's money can never resist self-justification. He's building our case for us." That week, something shifted inside me. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was focused. Every morning, I woke up with purpose. I organized documents. I created timelines. I researched precedents for similar cases. I also started telling my story. Not publicly, not yet, but to people who mattered. My sister in Arizona, my former colleagues from the library, the women in my book club. I showed them the evidence, let them see the texts, the social media posts, the wedding photos that excluded me. Their reactions ranged from shock to fury. "Margaret, this is elder abuse," my friend Dorothy said. "Financial exploitation of a parent. You should report this." I hadn't thought of it that way, but she was right. In Oregon, financial exploitation of elderly persons was not just civilly actionable, but potentially criminal. I wasn't sure I wanted to go that far, not yet. But it was good to know I had options. The 30-day deadline in the demand letter approached. Jason and Brittany sent nothing. No payment plan proposal, no good faith attempt to negotiate. On day 31, Patricia filed the civil lawsuit. Jason Michael Patterson and Brittany Ann Patterson, defendants. Margaret Rose Patterson, plaintiff. Case number 24, CV08847. Amount sought: $50,000 principal, plus interest, plus court costs and legal fees. It was public record now. Anyone could look it up. The private humiliation was about to become public knowledge. I waited for the explosion. The lawsuit hit Jason and Brittany like a bomb. The summons was delivered to their Seattle condo on a Tuesday afternoon by a professional process server. Patricia had recommended using a private service rather than the sheriff. More discreet, more professional, harder to claim they never received it. Jason called me 47 times that day, 47. I let every single call go to voicemail. The messages devolved from angry to desperate to threatening. "You're destroying my life. Brittany's family thinks I'm a fraud. My colleagues are going to find out about this. How can you do this to your own son? Never once. I'm sorry." Wednesday morning, they showed up at my house. I was in my garden, planting tomatoes for the summer, when I heard the car pull into my driveway. A sleek black Audi, not Jason's usual Honda. They must have upgraded after the wedding, with my money. Jason got out first. He looked terrible, unshaven, eyes red, wearing rumpled clothes. Brittany emerged from the passenger side, perfectly composed in yoga pants and an expensive jacket, her face hard. "Mom." Jason's voice cracked. "We need to talk, please." I stood slowly, brushing dirt from my gardening gloves. "I have nothing to say to you. My lawyer is handling everything." "Your lawyer?" Brittany stepped forward. "You mean the ambulance chaser you hired to extort us?" Ms. Chen is a respected family law attorney, and this isn't extortion. It's debt collection. Jason moved closer. For a moment, I saw the little boy he'd been, the one who'd cried when he scraped his knee, who'd hugged me before his first day of school. Then, his expression hardened into something I didn't recognize. "You're trying to ruin us," he said. "Do you understand what this lawsuit means? It's public record. My boss could see it. Our friends are already asking questions. Brittany's parents are humiliated. You should have thought about that before you stole from me." "We didn't steal!" Brittany shrieked. "You gave us that money! You can't just change your mind because you're bitter." I pulled out my phone, opened the text messages, held it up. Jason promised to repay me within 2 years, right here. That makes it a loan. Would you like me to read his exact words? Jason's face went pale. He'd forgotten about that text, or hoped I had. That was just... I was being polite, reassuring you. It wasn't a legal contract. "Tell it to the judge," I said calmly. "You have the court date, June 28th. Don't be late." Brittany's composure finally cracked. "You're a vindictive bitch. You're doing this because we didn't invite you to the wedding. You're trying to punish us for hurting your feelings." "No," I said, my voice steady. "I'm doing this because you committed fraud. You solicited money under false pretenses. You excluded me from an event I funded, and you refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing. This has nothing to do with feelings. It's about accountability. Accountability? Jason laughed bitterly. You want to talk about accountability? What about the accountable of being a mother? You were supposed to support me unconditionally. Unconditional love doesn't mean unconditional financing. I'm not an ATM, Jason. I'm a person you used and discarded. Brittany stepped forward, her eyes cold. If you don't drop this lawsuit, you'll never see your son again. You'll never meet your grandchildren. You'll die alone. Is that what you want? Is your pride worth that? The threat hung in the air. I felt something twist in my chest. Not fear, but recognition. This was who they were. This was what I'd refused to see. If the price of having you in my life is letting you steal from me without consequence, I said quietly, then yes, I'll die alone, and I'll die with my dignity intact. You're insane, Brittany spat. Come on, Jason. We're not begging this crazy old woman for anything. They left. Jason looked back once, his expression a mixture of anger and something that might have been regret. Then they were gone, the Audi's engine roaring as it backed out of my driveway too fast. I went inside and locked the door. Then I sat on my couch and shook for 10 minutes straight. Patricia called that afternoon. I heard they came to your house. Did they threaten you? Yes. Brittany said I'd never see my grandchildren if I didn't drop the lawsuit. That's witness intimidation. I'm documenting it. How are you holding up? I'm okay, I lied. Margaret, I've been doing this for 20 years. I know what family lawsuits cost emotionally. You need to take care of yourself. This is going to get worse before it gets better. She was right. Over the next few days, the attacks intensified. Brittany's mother called me, claiming I was destroying a young couple's future over money. A cousin I barely knew sent a Facebook message telling me I should be ashamed of myself. Someone left a nasty note on my car windshield. Family, abandoner. Jason had launched a whisper campaign, painting me as a bitter, controlling mother who couldn't accept her son's happiness. He conveniently left out the part where he'd taken my entire savings and excluded me from the wedding. By Friday, I was exhausted, emotionally drained. Questioning everything, I called Patricia. I need a break. Can we pause this somehow? The lawsuit is filed. We can't unfile it. But you can take time for yourself. The discovery phase won't start for a few weeks. Rest. Disconnect from social media. Don't engage with them. Let me handle the legal work. I took her advice. I turned off my phone. I spent the weekend in my garden, my hands in the earth, my mind deliberately blank. I cooked meals from my mother's old recipes. I watched old movies. I slept. By Monday morning, I felt steadier. Not healed, but functional. The wound was still raw, but I was learning to carry it. I turned my phone back on. 17 missed calls, 23 text messages, all from Jason and Brittany and their allies. I deleted them all without reading. I was learning that the opposite of love wasn't hate. It was indifference. The attempted bribe came on a Wednesday, exactly 2 weeks after I'd filed the lawsuit. An envelope arrived in my mailbox. Expensive cream-colored stationery with my name handwritten in elegant calligraphy. No return address. Inside was a single-page letter and a check. The letter was from Jason, his handwriting unmistakable despite the formal tone. Dear Mom, I've had time to reflect on our situation. I realize my approach to the wedding planning hurt you deeply. That was never my intention. Brittany and I have discussed this extensively, and we want to make things right. Enclosed is a check for $15,000 as a gesture of good faith. We'll commit to paying you an additional $15,000 by the end of the year. Please consider this our sincere attempt at reconciliation. All we ask is that you drop the lawsuit. This legal action is causing tremendous stress on our marriage and our professional reputations. We're willing to forget everything if you are. Let's be a family again. Love, Jason. The check was real. I verified it with my banking app. $15,000 drawn on their joint account, properly signed. I stared at it for a long time. $15,000 would fix my roof. It would rebuild part of my emergency fund. It would ease the financial anxiety that had been keeping me awake at night. But it wasn't $50,000, and it came with conditions. Drop the lawsuit, absolve them, pretend none of this happened. They were trying to buy my silence at a discount. I called Patricia. They sent me a check for $15,000 and a letter promising another $15,000 by year's end if I dropped the lawsuit. She laughed, sharp and knowing. Of course they did. They're realizing they might actually lose in court, so they're trying to settle for 30% of what they owe. Do you want to negotiate? What would you advise? Honestly, if you take this, they'll pay the first $15,000, you'll drop the suit, and you'll never see the second payment. I've seen this pattern 100 times. They're not offering reconciliation. They're offering a strategic retreat. That's what I thought. I photographed the check and the letter, sent copies to Patricia for the case file, then tore both into small pieces and threw them away. My response was a text message to Jason. See you in court? His reply came within seconds. You're making a huge mistake. Maybe I was, but it would be my mistake, made on my terms. That weekend, something unexpected happened. I attended my book club meeting. We were discussing Where the Crawdads Sing, and when I arrived, the atmosphere felt different. Charged. Dorothy, who'd organized the club 15 years ago, pulled me aside before we started. Margaret, we heard what Jason did. Carol's daughter is friends with someone who saw the public court filings online. We want you to know. We're with you. The meeting didn't discuss the book. Instead, it became an impromptu support session. 8 women, ages ranging from 55 to 78, sharing their own stories of being underestimated, used, or betrayed by family members. Carol's son had borrowed $30,000 for a business opportunity and never repaid her. Linda's daughter had taken out credit cards in her mother's name and destroyed her credit score. Ruth's grandson had stolen her jewelry and sold it for drug money. The hardest part, Ruth said, her voice quiet, is admitting that someone you love sees you as a resource, not a person. But Margaret's fighting back, Dorothy said firmly. She's not accepting it. She's showing all of us that we don't have to be victims. They'd taken up a collection, $1,200 in cash, carefully counted out in small bills. For your legal fees, Dorothy explained. We know Patricia's giving you a discount, but every bit helps. I started crying. I couldn't help it. These women, some I'd known for decades, others I'd only met a few years ago, were standing with me, believing me, supporting me. I can't take your money, I protested. Yes, you can, Carol said, because next time one of us needs help standing up to someone, you're going to be there for us. That's what community means. I took the money, used it to pay Patricia's retainer fee, sent a group text thanking them all. Dorothy replied, Warriors need armies. You're not alone. The support gave me strength, but it also made me visible. By Monday, word had spread through our community. The librarian at my old high school called to check on me. My former principal sent an email offering to write a character witness statement. Even my mail carrier, Tom, who'd delivered to my house for 20 years, asked if I was okay. I heard about your situation, he said carefully. My daughter did something similar to my ex-wife. Took money for a down payment on a house, then cut her out of her life. It's cruel. I'm sorry you're going through it. These small acts of kindness were rebuilding something in me. Jason had tried to isolate me, to make me feel like I was crazy for demanding accountability. But the people who actually knew me, who'd watched me work hard, save carefully, live honestly, they saw the truth. I wasn't crazy. I was right. On Tuesday, I received a Facebook friend request from someone named Amanda Chen. Patricia's daughter, I realized from the profile. I accepted and immediately got a message. Mrs. Patterson, my mom doesn't usually talk about her cases, but she told me about yours. I'm a journalist with the Seattle Times. I'd like to interview you about financial elder abuse in families. Would you be willing to talk? I stared at the message for a long time. Going public would be nuclear. It would make reconciliation with Jason impossible. It would humiliate him professionally, but it would also expose what he'd done. It would warn other parents. It would make the invisible visible. I typed back, "Yes, I'll talk." They came on a Thursday evening, just as the sun was setting. I was making dinner, simple pasta with marinara sauce, the kind Jason had loved as a child, when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw them both. Jason was holding flowers. Brittany carried what looked like a bakery box. They'd dressed carefully, Jason in a casual button-down, Brittany in a soft sweater that probably cost more than my monthly utility bill. They looked like the perfect young couple coming to visit family. I knew better now. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. "What do you want, Mom?" Jason's smile was gentle, almost sad. "Please, can we come in? We want to talk. Really talk. No lawyers, no threats. Just family." Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. They settled on my couch. The same couch where Jason had sat hundreds of times growing up, doing homework, watching cartoons, talking about his dreams. Brittany placed the bakery box on the coffee table. Cannoli from Russo's, my favorite. "We brought a peace offering," she said, her voice warm. "Jason told me you love their cannoli." The performance was impressive. They'd clearly rehearsed this. "We've been doing a lot of thinking," Jason began. "A lot of soul-searching. And you're right, Mom. We handled everything wrong. The wedding planning, not putting you on the guest list, the way we asked for money, all of it was thoughtless." "Thoughtless," I repeated flatly. "We got caught up in wedding stress," Brittany added, reaching over to touch my hand. I pulled it away. "You know how weddings are. Everyone says they bring out the worst in people. We lost sight of what matters, family." "So we want to make you an offer," Jason continued. "A real one. We'll pay you back the full $50,000 in installments, but with a written contract. Legal, official, everything you want. $2,500 a month for 20 months. We'll start next month." I did the math. 20 months at that rate would actually total $50,000. It was a legitimate repayment plan. "All you have to do," Brittany said sweetly, "is drop the lawsuit. Sign a mutual release saying there are no hard feelings, no debt owed. We start fresh. You come to Sunday dinners. We rebuild our relationship. When we have kids, you'll be their grandmother, a real grandmother, involved in their lives." They were offering me everything I thought I'd wanted: family, connection, my money back, grandchildren someday. "We even talked to a family therapist," Jason added. "She suggested we all go to counseling together, process what happened, heal as a family. Doesn't that sound better than destroying each other in court?" I looked at my son. Really looked at him, searching for the boy I'd raised, the young man I'd been proud of. I wanted to see remorse. Real remorse, not this practiced contrition. Instead, I saw calculation. I saw someone who'd identified what I wanted and was using it as leverage. "This is a very generous offer," I said slowly. Jason's face brightened. "So you'll consider—" I'm not finished. My voice hardened. "It's generous, well-rehearsed, and completely insincere." Brittany's mask slipped for just a second. "Excuse me? You're not here to apologize. You're here because the lawsuit is damaging your reputation. Jason's colleagues have probably started asking questions. Brittany's family is probably embarrassed. This isn't about making things right. It's about making this go away." "Mom, that's not—" "Don't lie to me anymore, Jason. I'm done being lied to." I stood up. You want me to drop the lawsuit so the public record disappears. You want me to sign a release so I can never pursue this again. Then, once the legal pressure is off, those monthly payments would mysteriously stop. Cash flow problems, unexpected expenses. And I'd have no recourse because I signed away my rights. You're being paranoid, Brittany said, her voice going cold. Am I? You sent me a check for $15,000 2 weeks ago with the same basic offer. I didn't take it, so now you've upgraded to the full amount with a payment plan. You're negotiating like I'm a creditor, not a mother. Because that's all I am to you. A problem to be managed. Jason stood too, the gentle expression vanishing. What do you want from us? We're trying here. I want you to tell the truth. Just once. Admit that you never intended to repay me. Admit that you excluded me from the wedding deliberately, not because of venue capacity. Admit that you see me as an ATM, not a parent. Silence. Heavy and condemning. Then Brittany laughed. Actually, laughed. You want the truth? Fine. Here's the truth. You're a lonely old woman who was desperate to feel needed. We gave you a purpose, helping with our wedding. You should be grateful we included you at all. Brittany, Jason started, but she was on a roll. You know what your problem is, Margaret? You think being a mother entitles you to something. It doesn't. Jason's an adult. He doesn't owe you a relationship. He doesn't owe you access to his life. The fact that you birthed him 32 years ago doesn't mean he has to keep you around if you're toxic. Toxic, I repeated, almost amused. I'm toxic for expecting honesty and repayment? You're toxic for trying to control him with money. Brittany was standing now too, all pretense of sweetness gone. You're trying to punish him for choosing me, for building a life that doesn't revolve around you. That's what this is really about. You can't stand that he loves me more than you. Jason finally spoke, his voice quiet but vicious. You're going to lose this lawsuit, Mom. Our lawyer says your case is weak. That text message doesn't prove anything, and when you lose, you'll have wasted even more money on legal fees. You'll look pathetic, and you'll still be alone. Then I guess we'll find out in court, I said. Now get out of my house. Gladly. Brittany grabbed her purse. Enjoy your empty life. Enjoy dying alone with your pride and your precious principles. We tried to help you. We offered you a way back into this family. You chose wrong. They stormed out. Jason paused at the door, looked back one more time. For a second, I thought he might apologize, might show some flicker of the son I'd raised. Instead, he said, I hope it was worth it. Then they were gone. I locked the door, leaned against it, and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from fury, from the clarity that comes when someone finally shows you exactly who they are. Patricia was right. It was going to get worse before it got better, but I was still standing. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Municipal Circuit Court, Division 7, Judge Sandra Morrison presiding. Patricia had explained that civil suits like this rarely went to full trial, most settled. But Jason and Brittany had refused every settlement offer, confident they'd win. Their confidence was about to cost them everything. All rise. I stood, smoothing my navy dress, professional, dignified, the same outfit I'd worn to parent-teacher conferences for 20 years. Across the aisle, Jason and Brittany sat with their attorney, Marcus Webb, a slick corporate lawyer in an expensive suit. Brittany wore pearls. Jason kept his eyes straight ahead, refusing to look at me. Judge Morrison was a black woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor. She'd reviewed the case filings, Patricia had told me, and had a reputation for cutting through bullshit. We're here for Patterson versus Patterson and Patterson, she said. Mrs. Margaret Patterson, alleging breach of contract and fraud regarding a $50,000 loan. Mr. Webb, your clients are defending on the grounds that this was a gift, not a loan? That's correct, Your Honor. Ms. Brittany Patterson and Mr. Jason Patterson maintain that Mrs. Patterson voluntarily gifted them money for their wedding with no expectation of repayment. Ms. Chen, you're arguing otherwise? Patricia stood. Yes, Your Honor, we have documentary evidence proving this was a loan with explicit promise of repayment, which the defendants have refused to honor. Then let's see this evidence. Mrs. Patterson, you're first. I took the witness stand. My heart was pounding, but my voice came out steady. Patricia walked me through the timeline. Jason's phone call requesting money, his explicit promise to repay within 2 years, the wire transfer depleting my entire savings. Mrs. Patterson, did you consider this money a gift? Patricia asked. No. My son specifically told me he would pay me back. He said he was getting a promotion and his wife's career was going well. He promised me I wouldn't be without my savings for long. And do you have evidence of this promise? Yes. Patricia projected the text message on the courtroom screen, Jason's words huge and undeniable. Thanks, Mom. You're the best. I'll pay you back within 2 years, I promise. I'm getting a promotion soon, and Brittany's company is doing well. I watched Jason's face go pale. He'd forgotten about that text, or hoped I'd deleted it. Mrs. Patterson, were you invited to the wedding you funded? No, I was turned away at the door by security. They said I wasn't on the guest list. A murmur went through the small gallery. My book club friends had come to support me, along with a few curious community members, and, I noticed, Amanda Chen from the Seattle Times, taking notes. Webb cross-examined me, trying to paint me as a bitter mother seeking revenge. Isn't it true, Mrs. Patterson, that you're doing this because you're hurt that your son's wife became his priority? I'm doing this, I said calmly, because my son committed fraud. He solicited money under false pretenses and failed to repay as promised. My feelings are irrelevant to the facts. Jason took the stand next. Webb tried to control the narrative, but Patricia destroyed him methodically. Mr. Patterson, did you tell your mother you would repay her? I was just reassuring her, being nice. Being nice by making a false promise? It wasn't false. I intended to pay her back eventually if I could. Eventually, if you could, is very different from within 2 years, isn't it? You specifically gave her a timeline. That constitutes a promissory agreement. Patricia pulled up Jason's social media posts. These show you planning the wedding starting in January, 2 months before you even told your mother about the engagement. You'd already booked the venue, hired vendors, designed invitations, all before asking her for money. Why? Jason stammered. We were planning ahead, planning to use her as a bank. Patricia's voice was sharp. You already knew what this wedding would cost. You already knew your mother had savings. You orchestrated the entire ask, didn't you? Objection, Webb called. Speculation? Sustained, Judge Morrison said. But Mr. Patterson, I'd like to hear your answer anyway. Jason looked at his lawyer, then at Brittany, then finally at me. What I saw in his eyes wasn't remorse. It was resentment that he'd been caught. We needed the money, he said finally. Mom had it sitting in a bank account. We had a once-in-a-lifetime event. I thought she'd want to help. Want to help or be obligated to help because you're her son? Patricia pressed. What's the difference? The courtroom went silent. Even Webb looked like he wanted to disappear. Judge Morrison leaned forward. Mr. Patterson, did you or did you not promise to repay your mother within 2 years? Yes, but I didn't mean it as a legal. Intent matters less than the words you used and the reliance those words created. Your mother emptied her life savings based on your explicit promise. That's textbook promissory estoppel. She turned to Brittany. Mrs. Patterson, do you have anything to add? Brittany took the stand against Webb's visible advice. She couldn't help herself. She had to try to control the narrative. Margaret gave us that money because she wanted to. No one forced her. If she regrets it now because she's bitter about the wedding, that's not our problem. Were you aware your husband had promised to repay his mother? He might have said something to make her feel better, but... Yes or no, Mrs. Patterson? Brittany's jaw tightened. Yes. And did you intend to honor that promise? A pause. Too long. We intended to help her out if she ever needed. That wasn't the question. Did you intend to repay the $50,000? We couldn't afford. Yes or no? No. The word came out like a hiss. We couldn't afford to. We have our own lives to build, our own expenses. Including a $50,000 wedding you couldn't afford without her money? Brittany's composure finally shattered completely. She's his mother. She should want to help us. That's what parents do. They sacrifice for their children. Sacrifice, Mrs. Patterson, is not the same as fraud. Judge Morrison had heard enough. I'm ready to rule. Judge Morrison removed her glasses and looked directly at Jason and Brittany. The courtroom was absolutely silent. I've been on the bench for 19 years, she began, and I've seen many family disputes. Most involve gray areas, misunderstandings, competing versions of reality. This is not one of those cases. Jason shifted uncomfortably. Brittany stared straight ahead, her jaw clenched. The evidence is clear and damning. Mr. Patterson solicited $50,000 from his mother with an explicit written promise to repay within 2 years. This constitutes a valid loan agreement under Oregon contract law. She looked down at her notes. What makes this case particularly egregious is the pattern of deception. The defendants planned their wedding for months before requesting the money. They excluded Mrs. Patterson from the event she funded entirely. When confronted, they denied the loan's existence and attempted to settle for pennies on the dollar. Morrison's gaze hardened. Mrs. Brittany Patterson's statement that parents should sacrifice for their children shows a fundamental misunderstanding. Parents are not ATMs. What the defendants did constitutes financial exploitation. The court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Margaret Rose Patterson, on all counts. The defendants are ordered to pay principal amount of $50,000, interest of $3,147, court costs and legal fees of $8,200. Total judgment, $61,347. Brittany gasped. Jason looked sick. Furthermore, I'm ordering immediate garnishment of the defendant's wages. Mr. Patterson, 25% of your salary will be withheld and paid directly to your mother. Mrs. Patterson, 15% of your salary will likewise be garnished. Your Honor, that's financially devastating, Webb protested. They should have thought of that before committing fraud. Additionally, I'm placing a lien on any real property. This judgment is effective immediately. This court is adjourned. The gavel fell. Patricia was grinning. We didn't just win, we annihilated them. Brittany suddenly stood and stormed toward the exit, then stopped and looked directly at me. I hope you're happy. You destroyed your son's life over money. I stood too, met her eyes with perfect calm. I didn't destroy his life. I held him accountable. There's a difference. He'll never forgive you. I don't need his forgiveness. I need his integrity, which clearly doesn't exist. She left, Jason trailing behind her like a kicked dog. He didn't look at me. That evening, I sat in my garden with a glass of wine. My phone buzzed. A deposit notification. Patricia had transferred the $2,000 enforcement fee. It was already in my account. I raised my glass to the sunset, to dignity, to accountability, to the power of refusing to be a victim, and to the fact that sometimes, just sometimes, the good guys win. 6 months after the judgment, my life had transformed completely. The wage garnishment worked like clockwork. Every 2 weeks, money appeared in my account. $1,847.32 from Jason's paycheck, $892.15 from Brittany's. I watched my security return, watched justice manifest in dollars and cents. I used the first $10,000 to fix my roof. The contractor nearly cried when I called him with the good news. I bought raised garden beds, good soil, heirloom seeds. My garden flourished. The book club women threw me a victory garden party. Dorothy made a cake with "Justice is sweet" written in frosting. You inspired us, Carol said. My son called asking to borrow $5,000. I told him no, just no. He actually apologized. Apparently, he's not used to me having boundaries. Amanda Chen's article published in the Seattle Times. The Hidden Epidemic: When Adult Children Exploit Elderly Parents. I received letters from around the country. I started teaching a workshop at the senior center called Financial Boundaries with Family. 20 people showed up the first time, 50 the second. By the third month, we had a waiting list. Meanwhile, Jason and Brittany's life crumbled spectacularly. Jason's promotion never materialized. His manager found the court records during a background check. The company had a values and ethics clause. Defrauding your elderly mother violated those values. His career stalled permanently. Brittany lost her marketing job entirely. Her company worked with luxury brands and older, wealthy clients. Exactly the demographic she'd helped exploit. They couldn't afford the association. The wage garnishment meant they couldn't afford their condo mortgage. The court lien meant selling would give all proceeds to me first. They'd bought at market peak. They ended up renting it out and moving into a small apartment in a worse neighborhood. Brittany's Instagram went dark. The last post had brutal comments. "You stole from your husband's mother. You deserve everything you're getting." Jason deleted his social media entirely. I heard they were fighting constantly. Money stress destroys relationships. Word is they're heading for divorce, Dorothy told me. Brittany's mother told her to leave him. The irony was perfect. They'd accused me of prioritizing money over family. Now money was destroying theirs. I felt no guilt. This wasn't revenge, this was reality. In October, I took my first vacation in 5 years, Arizona, to visit my sister. I paid for everything with settlement money. "You seem different," Elena said. "Lighter, stronger." "I stopped being afraid," I told her. I stopped prioritizing other people's comfort over my own dignity. By December, the settlement was 2/3 paid. I'd rebuilt my emergency fund,